hotter the conflict, the greater the triumph.
A theistic serpent may be overcome by a swarm of ants.
Lead me, follow me, or get out of my way. Age wrinkles the body, quitting wrinkles the soul.
Battle buddies.
Battle buddies.
Two dudes fucking.
And we just got done doing crazy shit. Glad we turned off the camera for that. Yo,
Hey, man.
welcome back to Battle Buddies, dude.
It's been a while. The year's almost over.
Well, I have to say, because of our new strategy here with the podcast, I feel like our reading has my reading has exponentially increased.
Absolutely.
I kind of wanted to have a slide like you do where I show my resources, which I'll probably do for the Patreon that we never do, but we say we will.
Yeah.
Lots of books, bro. Lots of books. And yeah, just the point I'm trying to make is that it's nice to be back on the microphone rather than behind a book.
Yes. You don't want to be a nerd. You don't want to be too much of a nerd.
Sometimes I forget we actually talk into microphones.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Have you watched those like alpha camps? I'm sure you must get your algorithm. I'm imagining gets a lot of like, join this alpha camp where we go and train you to become an alpha man.
Sure, yeah.
So this one was like an 18.
What does that mean? I'm sure your algorithm gets
Because you do all these like gym workout things. Like I see your algorithm. I go on the Battle Buddy sometimes.
Okay, fair enough.
And well, it's even like mandatory fun day adjacent stuff. You know, like it's not far from it. I'm not throwing. It's not a left field guess for your algorithm.
True. As a matter of fact, I think we have a friend who would very much be.
Yes, absolutely. Adjacent at least. So anyway, I like them. I like watching any of the videos I can on them because I find them very interesting about like the rhetoric and the silliness. And there's two that I want to talk about just really quickly because they're really funny. So these are from like those like $18,000 alpha camps that you go to where you just get berated by a fake boot sergeant. It's just, what do you call it? It's not boot sergeant. What do you call the guy who?
Yeah, like a drill instructor.
Drill instructor, the guy with the hat, and he wears like the funny strap on the hat, but you can't say it's funny, and that's the whole joke, I imagine, for 7 days. Anyway, there was one where the guy's like, "Take off your bag and fight me, take off," and the guy starts to take off his bag. He's like, "Okay, well, I guess we're gonna fight right now." And his buddy's like, "No, it's like a thing." Like his buddy like calls him back, and so he has to stand there. He's like, "Take off your bag. Why won't you take off your bag? Because you're a pansy. You're all pansies." And he like walks around. I thought that was really funny.
So it's like he was taking off his bag.
The guy was like, the guy was clearly new to the game and was like, "Oh, we're gonna fight? Fuck yeah!" And his buddy's like, "No, you can't actually fight this guy. This is just a show."
Yeah. That's the all part of the shtick.
And that's my like. I would give that one a B rating. The one that's an A rating, highly recommend finding it.
Is it black and white?
No, it's so good though. It's absolute cinema. It's the alpha guy. He's sitting in a chair, so you know it's serious. And he's sitting there talking to them. And he's like, "All right, guys, so you guys are all going to become alphas, all right? Ignore the trend in my voice. And what I want you to do is when you come home, you can't talk to your wife this way. I've been getting a lot of complaints from wives. You have to ease them into it because you're going to be this amazing man and you're just going to have all these new amazing routines and your family's not ready." Which essentially means everything that you're going to learn here is bullshit. You can't actually use it.
Yeah.
And if it's enough for him to talk about, I think the theme that we've been talking about a lot, especially since the Iliad, probably a lot of sexual assault.
Ooh, bummer.
Right? You're coming in alpha, coming back from this camp.
Yeah.
Take what's yours.
Yeah.
Take it. It's yours.
That might be accurate.
And he's getting a lot of women complaining to him, enough for him to talk to his men. Yeah, it sounds like a lawsuit. That sounds like he got famous enough for an HR complaint.
Yeah, dude. There's nothing new here. I've
Nothing new.
So the one that I saw was like a bunch of dudes going in like cold ice baths, and then they go hike in the mountains.
Oh yeah,
and I was like, you guys are really trying to find yourselves at 35?
Like no distractions, and they're all on their computers and phones. And like, what does that mean? But honestly, it looked pretty nice.
Yeah.
A lot of the comments on Reddit on that one are very funny because it's a lot of like gay people commenting like, can I go to the all boys club where we all hang out for the week and work out together? Because that sounds like exactly
Bro,
what I'd like to do.
Did people not go to summer camp? Like, what's the all that you're describing just sounds like summer. Sometimes you get like a counselor who's really intense.
I'm actually not against the travel ones, the destination alpha camps. Those ones make sense to me.
Yeah,
You need to find yourself because you fucked up. Sure.
Conceptually, I understand it.
You get to go travel and work out with your friends. I think that sounds like a hoot.
Yeah,
You're probably overpaying for it. You could do that a lot cheaper doing it yourself. But you know what?
paying a lot for it will probably give theater to the fact that it's more reputable.
But I'm just going to say this. Shout out to all our Solano County folks. If you go to a Fairfield warehouse to do it for 7 days, I'm going to judge you a little bit.
Yeah, Fairfield Warehouse.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's a little bit different. If you go to the industrial park of Vacaville to do your alpha camp, that might not be so alpha
No,
by definition.
no. If you're across the street from Heretic Brewing Company, you're in the wrong
That's what I'm saying.
neighborhood.
Or if you're doing it in Vacaville, you're across the street from Pure Grain.
Yeah, no, not very alpha.
Because you know you're going to Pure Grain after.
Not very sigma.
Shout out to Pure Grain.
Ladies and gentlemen, Battle Buddies is fucking back, and our cold opens have never been better.
This is great.
Today we are going to talk about, for the longest time, I was really honestly in my head trying to figure out what I was going to call this episode, and I wanted to call it Cold War 2.0 for a while, and then I was like, oh, well, it's not really that. Is it World War 3? So I think what we're really going to be talking about is like escalation and mainly flashpoints. We're going to be talking about flashpoints today, possibilities on certain places on Earth where a potential World War or Cold War could happen or already arguably is happening.
Right.
And so I want to start today's episode with the end of another story that I believe you are familiar with. And listener, if you are not familiar with it, there is a movie out there called Charlie Wilson's War.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
watched that. I was texting you while I was watching it. I was watching it with my parents the other day.
One of my favorite movies.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Fucking incredible. So I don't know if you remember how
Also, on that movie,
yeah.
Tom Hanks around a bunch of naked strippers is just not what you expect.
When his hair looks like that, it's okay?
I know. Well, the whole movie's fine. It's just when my dad was selling me the movie, he's like, well, watch it. It's a Tom Hanks vehicle. And I was like,
okay, I see.
oh, a Tom Hanks, like, political.
Doesn't he do coke as well? And cigarettes? He's smoking cigarettes and doing coke?
Yeah. No, I think the whole thing is he doesn't do the coke, right?
Well,
I'm proud of the coke. It's fine. It's the 80s. It's cleaner. I just wasn't expecting to see a shot with Tom Hanks and a bunch of naked women. I
it's
don't know.
jarring.
Also, we watched Trading Places yesterday. I forget that. What's his face is in blackface. That was rough.
Ooh.
Dan
That
Aykroyd
never ages well.
really doesn't.
Yeah. Usually there's like a disclaimer in front of watching stuff like that now.
I was just gonna.
Hey, just so you know, we're not really pro that. Make your own opinion now.
Which was one of the best things Disney ever did was that little blurb.
Truly.
Well,
They
nice.
handled that.
They paid somebody very well, and they
Yeah.
earned their money.
Yep. Agreed.
All right, Charlie Wilson's War.
So-
You should watch it.
Please do. So that movie is about a Texas, I believe, congressman trying to help the CIA figure out how to give the Mujahideen in Afghanistan weapons so that they can fight the Soviets, the
Yes,
Russians.
Yes,
Right?
it's the early Bin Laden shit.
It is. And the way that movie ends is at the end, the Mujahideen, obviously, as history will show you, they beat the Soviets. And
Yes.
they don't,
They fucking win.
they win. And
Dude, they're grit.
Mhm.
It is amazing. It is you should watch this movie.
Dude,
Also, the whole movie is beautiful because it's through Tom Hanks, who is this sleazy nobody who is absolutely emotionally drawn to what he witnesses when he goes over there, which
Yeah.
is such like a good perspective to take.
truly. But the movie ends with the Chinese farmer parable for a reason.
Okay.
And at the end, they're celebrating on at this party, and the CIA agent played by Philip Seymour Hoffman brings Tom Hanks out, and he's like, "Hey, man, I understand that you're celebrating right now, and it looks like we won something. And mind you, this is after we were like, hey, maybe we should bring some schools to Afghanistan and
Right.
educate these kids, right? And they're like, no, we don't want to hear about Afghanistan. We won." And this CIA analyst is explaining to this congressman, like, the parable of the Chinese farmer, where one day this Chinese farmer is chilling in a field with his son, and a bunch of horses, randomly wander into the farm and they're like, wow, look at all these free horses. This is amazing. This is going to be great for us. And the Chinese farmer says, we'll see. The next day, the kid hops on one of the horses, and as he's riding around, he falls off the horse and he breaks his leg. And the kid says, man, this is so horrible that I broke my leg. This is not good. And the Chinese farmer says, we'll see. The next day, the army comes into town, and they're going to start conscripting all these kids to go to war. And they can't take the kid because his leg is broken. And they're like, oh, this is so awesome. I can't go to war because my leg's broken. And the Chinese farmer says, we'll see. And the point, and as he's saying that, there's a part in the movie where literally an airplane flies over and they look up at the airplane and they pause. And it's alluding to 9/11.
Yeah, absolutely.
And super well done. And I want us to start with that parable because it's important to understand that I do want to approach this with some level of neutrality.
Absolutely.
I am going to present information based off of all the shit that I read and my opinions on things of how I understand the information that I read. And I want the listener to form their own opinion. I don't want them to walk away being like, this was a very this leaning thing. Like, no, dude, like, here's the information. Sometimes we don't know what is good or bad, and this is just what it is.
Right.
And so I just kind of wanted to clear the air prior to going forward that, like, politics and current events are unfortunately going to be mentioned when I bring up Flashpoints, because there's certain parts on planet Earth right now where if something hits the fan, big parties such as the United States are going to be affected.
Absolutely.
So
you were affected. You were deployed
100%.
because of things like this.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, dude.
Charlie Wilson's war definitely ended with the sober note of Spencer may not have had to be deployed if we spent $10 million more.
Right. If we educated some children, it would be interesting to see what the outcome of that was. If we were allies with Afghanistan and had some bases there in lieu of fighting them in
What was the
2001.
line? The line was something, I think the journalist says it, well, we just killed all their dads, and now they're going to not go to school, all the kids. Like, they're going to hate us for this. It's something like that. Like, and they're like, no, but we didn't do it. Like, but they're not going to know that.
Exactly.
And that was very sobering. I'm glad you brought up that movie. This episode, I think, is going to be a lot of sober takes from Spencer, and my ADD seems to be just really rampant. But we'll reel that in when we can.
It's all good, dude. So go ahead and hit the next slide for me if you could.
Here, I'll even give you
Thanks, bro.
power.
So one thing that Kevin...
Look at these guys.
Yeah, dude. These are some white guys figuring some shit out, dude.
They're carving up the world.
I had AI draw this up for me. This is your typical, like, Treaty of Versailles. This is your top hats fucking sitting around a table after a war being like, well, how do we get this done? How are we going to figure this out, right? And I think Kevin and I, after years of reading so much literature on war, when you look at the modern wars that we have covered and people have heard about, World War I has really fucked up a lot of shit.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think the main thing, this is the Battle Buddies kind of slant here, is the rewriting of all these lines for countries.
Absolutely.
And I think that is extremely important, because when you look back at our episode on Yadrang, I have about a sentence where I sit there and I explain why the fucking Vietnam War was happening. Right. And I think a lot of people still have some confusion about that. And I would have said, admittedly me as well, that I didn't necessarily understand Vietnam until I really started studying the Cold War.
Yes, absolutely.
I did not necessarily understand that Vietnam was like a proxy war of the Cold War. Yes. And when you see after World War I, these countries that don't necessarily get a fair shake, that is where this idea and this fear of an ideology consuming another country comes from. What do I mean by that? Well, we were just scared of communism spreading. Dude, for real. They were.
Absolutely.
Yes, dude. And that's the same thing. If you're still confused about that, you're like, I don't understand like how things could consume something like that. It is currently arguably happening on multiple spots on planet Earth right now, namely the Russia and Ukraine thing.
Yes.
If you read any current literature or have watched any like documentaries on Putin, one of the first things right out the gate that they try to mention to you is that his brain is very old school Soviet Union minded.
Even before, yeah, he's like, because I was listening to The Rest is History, and they've been covering the Great War, the Great Northern War, which is Peter the Great versus, I think, like Charles the Strong from Sweden. One, fascinating. It almost wasn't Russia. It was almost Sweden, essentially.
Whoa.
Like, that's how close it got. They were stronger. And this is all leading up, essentially, to World War I. But a lot of the things that Peter the Great says, as, you know, they're trying to establish Russia as a power, and they're trying to, what does Russia not have? Which I don't know if you're going to talk about it or not, but they don't have sea routes. Like, they don't have ports. And that's a big issue with Russia. And some people are saying that's why they care so much about the capturing of where they're trying to capture. They're trying to create more stable ports. Anyway, it's fascinating because they will quote some of Peter the Great's speeches, and they're the same ones Putin gives, and they're the same ones that the conscripted soldiers are getting right now.
Same rhetoric?
Same exact speeches.
Oh, wow.
Like, they are
literally word for word.
They are restating, because in this battle, in the Great Northern War, they invade the Ukraine.
Okay.
As well. It's the whole thing. It's just recycling. And it's the same mentality. But they were saying, they were drawing heavy, like, Putin is old school. Like, he's KGB. Yes. But more than that, he is also Peter the Great. Like, he likes the ancient history of Russia.
Yes. Very important to understand. And so if you ever watch interviews with him, or even like most recently the Zelensky thing, Putin views the Ukraine as Russia.
Absolutely.
He's just like, it just is Russia.
Yes.
It just is. And that's kind of like the fear here that I want people to understand is that, dude, countries can get consumed by ideas.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. Don't believe me? Dude, literally look at Nazi Germany.
Right.
Like, it's crazy to see how these lines work. And I think it's important to mention because recently, I don't know how recent, dude, the news cycle is impossible to keep up with.
It's so confusing.
It's impossible to keep up with, so I try my best, honestly, not to.
Well, and then I find something that I am interested in, and I want to investigate, and then it disappears from all media
by
outlets.
design, in my opinion.
And that's the problem that I'm running into is I'm not done with that. I want to know where that thing is going.
So Kevin's making a good point here. Even if you want to pick a lane and be like, all right, well, I'm just going to follow this part in the news, that's even difficult to do.
It is. I'm like searching for it everywhere, and why doesn't it exist anymore?
And so the one little nugget that I'd like to kind of point at is the Vice President, J.D. Vance, went to Germany within the last couple months as we record this.
Yes.
And he, in his speech, while I was folding laundry, I was listening to his speech, and at one point he was like, and he mentions the end of the Cold War. He's trying to give them some perspective. Right. He's like, and the Cold War finally ended in '89. And I laughed out loud.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, he thinks the Cold War ended in '89? In my mind? And then I started, so then that opened up a huge conversation between me and AI and being like, do we think that? You know what I mean? Because in my mind, it's like, okay, for Germany and where that wall was, sure, that aspect of the Cold War ended. But it's hard to view the Cold War as a solid war from one point of time into another. Right. And that's kind of why I'm starting here with like World War I and being like, dude, the redrawing of lines fucked a lot of shit up.
Yeah, where did the Ottoman Empire go?
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so that causes a lot of resentment. And it's the same thing with a post-World War II.
Yes.
When you have World War II, the Soviet Union literally just consumed these other countries, these Eastern European countries that just were like, well, now you're the Soviet Union. And they're like, word?
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah. And then they became poor because of it and started starving, became political prisoners and were conscripted to go to these wars and be a part of these militaries that they had wanted nothing to be a part of, and it's super fucked. It's super fucked.
It's bad. Well,
Yeah.
in the start of, I think a lot of people forget too, at the start of World War II, Russia was with Germany, and they conquered a lot of things together.
Oh yeah.
And the only reason why they bailed, as the narrative goes, I'm sure there's more to it if you were Russian, but the narrative is essentially that Hitler squelched on his deal to split one of the countries, I think it was Yugoslavia or something like that, and then he didn't split it with them. And then so they're like, fuck you then. That's how much it was going to go really bad for us, like, if that didn't happen. And I think I misspoke. Ottoman Empire disappeared after World War II, right? Not World War I? One of those two?
No, I don't think it disappeared after World War II. I think it disappeared after World War One.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's accurate. Because that's where you get things like Turkey.
Yeah,
and all
everything
that.
splits. You're like, okay, this whole nation's gone.
Yeah.
An empire's gone.
So
Easy peasy.
now we're gonna kind of shift.
Oh, look at this. That says top secret at the bottom, guys.
Yeah.
Woo! And at the top it says it, but it's crossed out so you don't know.
So, take away from what I was just saying, essentially, I want us to understand that the consumption of countries and ideas is very much a real thing. And that's where this idea of like fear of ideas comes from. Like the fear of communism, like, is it really? And obviously, you have extremes
Yes.
with like McCarthyism, and this dude was just going around calling everyone communist, and it like that's some crazy shit. And that's going to happen everywhere you go.
Yes, absolutely.
I believe there's even terms currently about political terms about people and their
Deranged Trump
there
syndrome.
it is. There's one of them. Deranged Trump syndrome.
Or Trump derangement syndrome. Yeah, something like that.
Something
absolutely,
like
yes.
that. And that's there for a reason. That's all there for a reason.
Well, and I think the thing to remember as a listener that's not in the military is traditionally, and so it always ebbs and flows depending on how like intelligent, quote unquote intelligent, like how humanist your people are, how politically deft they are. If you are a general and you are trained yourself classically in just the art of killing fuckers, right? Like that's what you do. I win battles. And you know that battles can also be won through what Dan Carlin calls the like a political contagion, an intellectual contagion. Then you're going to be terrified of that because you can't just blow that up. And so I think like the McCarthyism, I don't have sympathy for him, but I can understand him. He's terrified because he doesn't have an avenue. He's not smart enough with that, like with rhetoric, essentially, to disarm rhetoric that goes against what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, too, the thing that you'll probably be alluding to a lot is there's no world court. And so everything we do is just bullshit with each other, like where the lines are between countries. It's all
Totally, bro.
bullshit. So it's all gaslighting. So if I gaslight you enough, I get your country at the end
Yes.
of the day.
Yes. Oh, we're gonna, dude.
So like, right, like that's the whole thing to remember, I think, as the listeners, these people like McCarthy, they are legitimately scared because they don't understand it.
Yes. You always fear what you don't understand. As the Batman says.
Cicero is dangerous to Caesar because Caesar, while being very politically deft, knows that Cicero can gaslight him into losing the empire,
Yeah,
right? Like,
dude. All right. So this, bro, was for me, given my background and everything, when I found out about this shit, bro, I was like, man, I can't wait to talk about this on the podcast. So 1950, April looks like 14th down there. 1950.
this is a report to the National Security Council by the Executive Secretary on the United States Objectives and Programs for National Security, April 14th, 1950, and it looks like it was released in 1975. It was declassified.
Up there in the left-hand corner, what number is that? It says NSC
68.
Okay, everybody, that's a rememberable thing. NSC
really?
68, dude.
That doesn't
Yes.
mean anything to me.
It will now. So NSC
Cool.
68, this top secret report that was written in 1950 is when the United States, bro, fucking changed forever.
Oh,
So
weird.
do you remember, we talk about this when we did the Masters of the Air series,
Mhm.
and we know this also with World War I when we took World Civ in high school. But the United States was an isolationist
Absolutely.
country,
Anti-war.
100%.
Both presidents running before World War II, anti-war.
But we're just saying that
Sure.
military doctrine states so.
Yeah.
So like that's important. Like we're sitting there like,
Okay.
hey, just like, anecdotally, it looked like we were kind of isolationist. No. Our military doctrine was like, dude, we chill and we protect our own. Okay? So like that's where we were at. No joke.
Civ 7, it's all about economics for America.
Economics. That makes sense.
Because World War I, World War II, making money off making the weapons.
Yeah, there's another RTS game I'm playing that's on Game Pass right now called 1800. It's all about industry. It's all about industry.
That's America. I think they just are paying off these loans.
Really?
Yeah.
So NSC 68 is when the fucking United States decided to change its doctrine, its tactical doctrine, its philosophy on the military and how we are going to handle the world. And because of this doctrine, we no longer went from isolationists to, this is like, we're now the aggressors.
Yeah, intervention.
We are now going to be the aggressors. And it's important to know that because when you look back and you watch these new documentaries that came out on Netflix about the Vietnam War, which was fucking tremendous, by the way.
So hard to watch.
You have this guy, McNamara, the Secretary of Defense McNamara,
Absolutely.
with all these Nixon tapes being like, we got to go in there, we got to go. And then you have these Pentagon papers coming out like, so we knew we were going to lose, but why did we go anyway? And it's so confused. This is why, bro.
Right.
This is why. Because it became a part of our doctrine that we have to go fight. We no longer sit there and rationalize and be like, maybe we should like keep our nose out of this. It has nothing to do with us. Now we're like, no, now it's our job to go fight. And that's where South Park and those guys are interesting with the whole Team America.
Right.
Like that is legit.
Absolutely.
Like where we literally went out and I think this was important for me because for a really long time as like a young buck growing up, I was like, why does America feel like they need to go around and police this, dude?
Right.
Legitimately, this is the reason and I had no idea why. So that's important information as we kind of move forward because I am going to be talking about where we're at with military doctrine and what we're kind of investing in and perhaps I'm not going to say Spencer has the solutions, but I have ideas.
Sure. So you're saying the idea with this report is that this in 1950 we codified that we are no longer isolationists.
Yes.
Now we are interventionists and aggressors.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is, again, for Vietnam, it makes so much sense.
Absolutely.
Because we just kept on dropping bombs. And it was like, why are we doing this? It's like, because it's our doctor. It's like who we are now, bro. We're not going to do the whole sit back and listen to the Winston Churchills of the world and be like, what do you guys need from us?
Right.
That's not it anymore, bro. So.
It's interesting, though, because we've always had, I think people like to paint that we were full isolationists to full aggressors. But we opened up Japan with gunboat diplomacy for the economic trade. So we have always had a little bit of that Navy-ish thing of we need trade routes going because we have access to both sides of we have access to both oceans. So we can trade and make a ton of money. And you don't get to not be open for business anymore. That's not to say that we were aggressors in the way that we will be like against Vietnam, but we did use our gunboats to open them up.
Oh yeah.
So it's interesting.
Dude. These are called gray zone tactics.
It is. Yeah, there's something
we're
there.
gonna get it. We're gonna get into that. It's gonna be very interesting. But yes, that's.
You're getting me to think. I like this.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So.
Oh my God! This looks like an Intel kid gonna give me a little speech here.
Yes, sir.
That's good.
This is literally something that probably a lot of military folks have heard from random classes. We were tested on it in intelligence school. This here is called the OODA loop. And I'm using this as a prelude to what we're really going to get to, which is the kill chain. But I want us to understand the OODA loop because they are kind of the same things with minor differences. So with the OODA loop, we have you observe, you orient, you decide, and you act. It's important to know here that this is an idea where you continually do it all the time, every day.
Absolutely.
Hence the word loop, right? It's constantly happening. You should always, wherever you go, if it's a restaurant, if it's a movie theater, you should be observing what you're doing. You should be orienting, looking at the exit signs if anything goes down. If anything does go down, you need to make a decision and you need to act on that decision. These are things that you need to be constantly thinking about as you are just a basic human on planet Earth. Now, obviously, this can grow out to a military aspect. And as you do start to expound upon this military aspect of the OODA loop, you get something that I just recently learned about in life, which is the kill chain. Now,
Whoa, that's so sad looking.
now I must admit, and I could be wrong, but if memory serves me correctly, which it rarely does, I do not remember learning about the kill chain while I was in the military. And I think because we were just slightly below the cusp of these capabilities. Right. Like as I was getting out, these were just kind of getting started. There were some things that were adjacent to it where we would triangulate positions with Radio Battalion, like our boy Lyle did. But
you probably weren't, because we were in an active war, they were probably just training you for what you needed to do, which was not this yet. And
perhaps this we didn't even have a name for it yet. Perhaps.
Right.
It was so novel.
Or it meant something different.
Correct. So Kevin and I are obsessed with literature and people who do proper research to check in on shit, right? And I came across one of the things that the impetus that created this episode, where I wanted to talk about potential World War conflicts. I was going across a reading list for the Commandant of the Marine Corps.
Yes.
His name escapes me right now, but I'm not currently in the Marine Corps, so I'm not going to get yelled at. But on this Commandant's reading list was a book by Christian Brogy called The Kill Chain. And I was like, interesting. If a Commandant, leader of an entire military branch, one which I obviously am biased and like a lot of, is recommending this book, I'm going to check it out. And so this book basically breaks down what current military doctrine looks like kind of for the rest of the world.
Okay.
And it's based on this idea of a kill chain. And a kill chain is a very, very similar to the OODA loop, where you have to observe something, you orient, you make a decision, and you act. But instead of the individual, the kill chain is more on like a military and technical aspect of things. Okay? So like electronically, you're observing something with, a satellite or an airplane or a drone, right? You're observing. You're orienting. Where is the target that I want it to, destroy? Once you find this target, you make a decision. Boop, I'm going to destroy this village in Afghanistan. And then you make the action. The general says yes. Now, at some point in this chain, it's not supposed to continually go around and around and around like an OODA loop. This is you're supposed to kill the enemy on the battlefield.
Yeah, blow them up.
And this is what the future is, dude. We're going to be sitting on computer screens and we're going to be trying to intercept certain parts of this kill chain, whether that be a satellite, whether that be, we're going to get into this, but it doesn't show it on this graphic here, but submarines are a huge part of the kill chain.
Absolutely.
Yeah, huge. But now I understand like more so than ships. Like submarines are astronomically more important than ships. I hate to say that, but it's just factual.
Ships, so they have very specific. I just feel like ships, like destroyers, are needed to intercept potentially submarines from blowing up your carriers. That's just how it's going to work.
Yeah.
I have a philosophical question. So,
I love philosophical questions.
I was a crisis management trainer for schools for a long time when I was teaching like the emotionally disturbed, and I got trained by these really, really good people on like how to manage crisis and manage people that were elevated and gonna cause harm. And what they really impressed upon me was the risk of doing something and the risk of doing nothing, like actively teaching. Like I could do it pretty well. Like I don't actually need to do anything, because if I do anything, I'm going to just make the situation worse. And so that became my big sticking point when I'm teaching other people, is like, do you actually need to put hands on this kid or adult right now? Like, because if you do, you might kill them. And just so we're clear, whenever you put hands on a kid, you might kill them, because you could block their diaphragm when you restrain somebody. And so that's all I would focus on. It's not all, but like that was like my heavy focus. Like, do you actually need to do this? And they taught me by, she was pretending to be she was pretending to be a strong. I think the scenario is like a strong high schooler who is emotionally disturbed, known to be emotionally disturbed, has a behavior, like all this stuff, right? She came in with a chair, holding it one hand, swinging it around. And so me and the other like really high up guy, I'm not going to name his name, but it's like the highest up you could be. And him and I were in charge of the scenario, and we're like, okay, what do we do? We're like, hands on. So we put hands on her. And then she very nicely reamed us for it. She said, was there any kids in the room? I'm like, no. Why couldn't you just leave the room and shut the door? And it was just really profound because we went through the whole thing. She did not make the restraint easy. It was really hard to do. So we were like tired, and it was just so illuminating for me of I don't have to do anything. So I'm wondering, because it's military doctrine, you guys make the decision, but the way that you were phrasing it made it seem like you are expected to give a decision to your general rather than we should also do nothing here.
The Cold War is a study of escalation and perception.
Right.
And you have these superheroes, dude, throughout history. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. There's one, he's like an Air Force officer. We don't celebrate him. We don't know.
Yeah.
I believe his last name is like Tutsalani or something like that. And he was chilling in Germany one day and on like a midnight watch and saw on a computer that they were like, oh, incoming missile. And he was like, shit.
Oh, yeah.
That's an incoming missile. I'm like, all right. Are you going to like shoot back? What are we going to do? And he was like, no.
It might be an error.
Yeah. He's
And
like, it might be a flock of birds. It might be what, and he says, excuse me, he says no, bro, and saves the world.
Saves the world.
Russia has a very similar person. They actually do celebrate this dude every year, and it's like a holiday.
They should. He
Yeah,
did save.
dude.
He saved specifically their whole country.
These types of things happen across the board throughout history, where we have these huge players that aren't the president that saved humanity because they were like, even if it is a nuclear missile, it should only hit one place.
Yeah.
It shouldn't continually just keep going and going and going and going and going. But the point of what you're talking about, to bring that all full circle, that took a person's perception, bro.
Right.
To be like, oh, like, because he could have reacted like you guys with the swinging chair and be like, we need to put our hands on him. I need to release a thing. Blah, blah, I need to save
That's what I'm
America. But
saying.
he was like, this is clearly a measured, educated man who isn't Socrates, but is smart enough to know how bombs work.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something that we're going to be talking about here, that I will be mentioning as we get closer to the wargaming aspect of this.
What about from your... So that's like at the highest stakes of brinkmanship. What about at the low level? I'm just trying to get, for like us civilians, my head around it. If you were following the ODA and you were expected to give your report to your higher up or whatever to make the decision, right? As an intelligence guy, are you expected to give them action, or are you okay giving them no action?
No action.
Oh, cool. That's great. That's great to hear, honestly,
No.
because I would have expected it to be like, the general wants you to tell him what to blow up.
No.
Okay. That's
Hell
cool.
no.
That's honestly very reassuring. I like this.
You give very dry, neutral information. They ask you clarifying questions about that information, and then what their decisions are, thankfully, have nothing to do with a 19-year-old who's fucking.
But that's cool,
doing
because you could
whippets.
see how it could be the other side, right?
Oh, totally.
You could totally see a general being like, I only want your solutions to these problems.
So that would be law. Go be a lawyer.
Right.
Because now you're trying to convince people of something.
Absolutely.
Whereas I'm not trying to convince you of something. I'm trying to explain to you information that we know.
Right.
And if I don't know something, I now need to write that down and look for it so that I can help him make decisions on the battlefield.
Yes.
But things are changing, bro. And that's why this is going to be
okay.
a really interesting episode, because with the kill chain and with drones constantly taking pictures, and with automation, dude, and AI going through all of this information much faster than a human being would, decisions are just going to be handled differently. I think decisions will be automated.
Yeah, and
They have to be.
which means the margin of error is gonna increase.
Yes. Yeah.
Because AI is wrong a lot.
Dude, arguably, there's, I don't know if you've heard of the CSIS, like the Council for Strategic Intelligence Services.
Yeah.
It's like,
From you.
yeah, they're dope. Well, so they put out intelligence summaries for everything that's going on in the Ukraine war right now. Yeah, there's AI's making we're making
lethal
some
choices.
Yes,
Yeah.
dude. So this is just an important aspect that I want us to know as we move forward.
So-
This is what warfare is now. It's the kill chain.
It's the kill chain. The kill
Yes.
chain is, can I go through the numbers real quick?
Please do.
So looking at the kill chain, it looks like,
And this is just this example.
yeah, this is just an example to illustrate the kill chain. We have, number one is mobile phones and radio signals are intercepted by the drones. Then 2, we get this Ku band. I don't know what Ku band means. KU band. It's just probably
It's a type of transmitter.
Yeah, it's just probably like a low frequency thing. Transmitters on drones and surveillance aircraft relay the raw data across the world via satellites.
Raw data. It's happening real time.
Real time.
Yeah.
And then 3 is the military pilots use this real-time data to fly the drones. So very loose with the word pilot there. Sensor operators and imagery analysts examine pictures, and geolocation analysts use algorithms to try to calculate phone locations.
Yeah, dude. Algorithms. All that's AI.
That is all.
All of
algorithms.
that is AI. And it's giving us examples of like
And then
Langley.
step 4 is going to be, looks like the drone being at 10,000 feet is going to launch guided missiles from the drone by pushing a button.
Okay. So you have a couple options here as a commander.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, dude, do you want to go and protect the thing that's happening after step 4? Do you want to protect everything? Do you want to protect the targets?
Right.
Do you want to go after the satellites? Would you like to go after the U-2 jet that's at 60,000 feet? Are you going to go after the drone? Or are you going to go after these guys with the mobile phones in Afghanistan? These Al-Qaeda or Taliban, that's ISIS-K.
The worst
what are we
part
doing here?
The worst part of this graphic is that, yes, it looks like there's a man
And
with
a
the
child.
phone, and he has a target on him. But just for accuracy, there's also what is clearly a woman in a dress
child.
and a child,
Yeah, that's not good.
which is bad optics. But I do appreciate the accuracy.
It is
because
accurate.
We are not accurate with these bombs,
No.
except for the guy we got off the balcony.
Bro,
That
let's
was
go.
dope. That was cool.
Biden got one, bro.
Everything else, very upset.
Zarqawi, bro. That was
Yeah.
Dr. Z. We talk about him in our episode on Islamic extremism.
Yes.
Go check that out. That's a really
That
good
was-
episode.
A clear W, but the bombing of kids and families is not my favorite.
No, me neither, dude. I'm gonna go ahead and say hot take here at
Anti.
Battle Buddies: anti-killing women and children. All right, bro. Now we went from the kill chain, and we get to talk about fun things like gray zone tactics.
I love some tactics.
Okay, so we are now going to be kind of morphing in here to some like actual flashpoints on planet Earth that I want us to talk about. Namely,
Wait, can we pause for 1 second?
yeah, dude.
Just for Battle Buddies rhetoric. This is phases of gray zone tactics. What's the strategy we are implementing for this tactic? What's the goal of the strategy that would require this tactic before we go into the minutia of the tactic?
You mean like a siege, or like a
Yeah,
or,
like
or
what's
like
the-
an aggro?
Are we trying to take something over aggressively? What are we trying to accomplish?
So yeah, I'm gonna get there. So,
Okay, sorry.
So no, it's all good. So prior, I oh my gosh, the amount of research I had to do for this
Yes.
episode. Okay, so one of the things that I focused on was the invasion of Taiwan.
Okay.
So listeners, if you've been with us for a while, we've had At Ease episodes where we talk about current conflicts going on in the world.
Free Taiwan's our motto.
And if you have not, if you've been living under a rock or don't look at the news, I don't blame you. And there is a island in the South China Sea off the coast of China called Taiwan. Taiwan is huge for making semiconductor chips.
Yes.
So if you were listening to this on your cell phone, that is all thanks to the semiconductor chips that were made in Taiwan.
They have a freaking lock on it, dude.
Yes.
We talked about this.
Yes, they have a lock on it. There's some other things. I mean, they're trying to. I believe the Taiwan chip company, they are making one in Arizona.
Oh, wow.
So like they are trying to branch out, and that is smart because like there's currently. So the same thing that we were talking about earlier with Ukraine and Russia,
Mhm.
and the whole thing that I was trying to sit there and talk about and preface this episode with saying like, hey, just know that ideas can consume countries. okay, China thinks that Taiwan is China.
Right. Yes.
China thinks that Taiwan is China. China also thinks that the entire South China Sea is theirs.
Yeah, they call it the South China Sea, unfortunately.
Right. So we, the rest of the world, view the South China Sea as international waters.
Right.
International waters is sort of agreed upon. There's certain global laws that are upheld as you are in international waters. China's not doing that. And that's where these things called gray zone tactics come into play.
Okay, so I would say then the strategy is modern diplomacy between multiple nations. And this is largely from the aggressive nation.
It's definitely a control. This is definitely a control tactic, because
it all has to be now, right? Because you can't just be super aggressive.
You can't.
Because of brinkmanship.
You're
nuclear
gonna
bombs.
find out. I'm really excited to get there, but I'm trying to be patient. We're gonna get there.
I'll slow it down. I'll let you go. All right, tactics. Phase of the gray zone. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
This is fun.
So the gray zone tactics. All right. So we have the South China Sea, which is basically Mos Eisley.
Right.
Okay. This is a huge trading route on planet, the biggest. Okay. I sent Kevin months ago this website I found where I was tracking maritime ships in real time. And I was like, we're going deep. Okay. Can confirm, bro, that this is the busiest part of the ocean as far as commerce is concerned. Can confirm. Okay.
Multiple nations, the Wild West.
Dude. So you got, if you listen to our Megiddo series, this is Megiddo.
Yes.
This is your
Suez Canal almost.
Yes, bro. This is big time. So prime real estate, okay? And what you have in these gray zone tactics is again, we were talking about escalation. Everything is about escalation and perception. And, officially what could happen is within the water, you have the Chinese Coast Guard could perceive something is happening that might not actually be happening. And that would escalate the Chinese to do something.
Yes.
Like take over a boat.
Yeah, absolutely.
In theory.
Yes. No nation's ever done this before.
No nation has ever done, and there's no stories about this.
There's no thing called the Boston Massacre, where we use the word massacre for was two people.
Right. Not a massacre.
No.
Not a massacre. Absolutely. So then you have you're initiating an operation where a boat is not where they're supposed to be. The Chinese Coast Guard comes and gets them. Okay, boom. Now we have what I believe in Civ 6 is called like a casus belli, right?
Casus belli.
You have these reasons. You have incentive to be out there. Like, well, Taiwan just has these fishermen boats out there, and the Chinese Coast Guard needs to go out there and clean it all up. And they're saying this sincerely, dude.
Yeah,
they're
absolutely.
Not like, hey, let's just say that. No.
Absolutely.
The rhetoric is that, no, this is a real problem.
If you're having a hard time understanding this, it's always been the same, but the mode of it has changed. In the Middle Ages, it's easier to understand because the Pope gave you permission to go conquer this nation. The Pope sanctioned you as France fighting England this time. That's a casus belli. That is a reason to do it. So it absolutely is the same thing. Yes. What this is reminding me of is that analyst. She was an analyst for, I think, National Security Council or something.
Oh, yeah.
And her big fear is that, something like China is going to hack a street light in America, and it's going to cause an accident, which causes a death, and then that cause of death will have to escalate following this type of format until we're at a hot war.
Yes. Yep. And that's the idea. So then you see up here under number 2 in gray zone tactics, you normalize a presence, dude.
Yeah.
So now China's just like roaming waters.
Positional authority.
Positional authority. And then you can literally pull boats over and just be like, papers, show me your papers.
Absolutely.
Okay. So then that's just like that becomes normal. And then as you go through, it's like, okay, well then as we go through the South China Sea with all of these iPhones on our ship, at some point China's probably going to stop us over and we're going to have to show them our manifest.
Right.
Like all the stuff we have. And they're going to have to go through and check and then, that's going to be problematic, right?
This is the person at your job who doesn't have an official title, but suddenly finds themselves being able to do a lot more than they're supposed to be able to do. This positional authority.
And over time, dude, what you're going to get, long story short, is if you have these guys patrolling waters and enforcing rules, what you'll have over time is you'll have Taiwan looking like the aggressor. Well, they're not following all these international rules that we have, dude.
The
And
norm.
it's a smart tactic, dude.
We have precedent. We've been doing this for 10 years.
Yep. And it's, we'll mention this again later in the episode, but it is a smart tactic, dude, because Putin's kind of using it.
Yeah.
And you have to be a little bit foolish to buy into it, which I do. It could be argued that our current president has a little bit, because you have Putin, who is continuing to do this, fighting for so long. And when you fight for so long and you're like, okay, well, here is my terms, but they don't accept the terms. Like, well, I gave them terms.
I gave them terms.
I've
heard it
terms.
from lots of people. And you know what's weird, though, is the people that I'm hearing that from, like in my life, those are the same people that used to make fun of appeasement before World War II. You know, when I was learning about World War II, and they're like, appeasement's the dumbest strategy. What a bunch of cowards. Like, this is appeasement. It's bad terms. Why would you accept that? It is obviously not going to stop with that.
Right.
Oh, he's just going to stop.
It's the Churchill thing, right?
Yes.
Like Hitler was like, we're not gonna take Britain, and then they like literally are flying towards Britain. And it's like, we're not gonna.
That's how Churchill got back into power, because
There you
of
go.
what's his face before. They kicked him out because of it. And I appreciate that guy. He was in World War I. I forget his name. Damn.
So gray zone tactics, massive, and
Okay, so then we get to. So we did
the whole idea is to ultimately get to a place where you're like, you know what, Taiwan is unlawful, and China just literally puts a blockade around Taiwan and doesn't let anything in or anything out, and they say it's ours, dude, and they take it back because they, again, if you read, I was about to say Mao, Xi Jinping's China One policy, the doctrine that he wrote out, his NSC 68. He literally says that he wants to take over Taiwan.
Yeah.
There's zero secret that he wants to do this. How he's going to do it is there's theories. There's lots of different theories that we can go over. But
this is a good theory.
these are the tactics. These are what gray zone tactics are. Will they use them? I don't know, but this is the conventional way we would break it down. Alrighty, dude. Now, I have sort of a guy. Got a guy.
It's nice to have a guy.
I got a guy, dude, that is still in the world.
Yep. That's all you need to know, people. We got a source.
Yeah, dude, I got a source. So every once in a while, this source will call me and it'll be like, hey, I need you to Google this. And so the last thing that he had me, not the last thing, but one thing that he had me Google over the last couple of months was A2AD. We call this, I believe, your anti-aerial, anti-area defense tactics. Okay? And this, folks, is the future of warfare. It is. It just is. Okay? And I'll tell you why. The reason why is because China is pretty, they understand that they have a lot of land already. It's already there. They have it. There's a fat plot of land. Obviously, they still want Taiwan, but they just view as Taiwan is already theirs anyway.
Yeah, can I explain the map?
Yeah, dude, please explain the map.
See it. So we have a very anti-American map because there's no America on it. So we're against that. No, I'm just kidding. It's a map, and it's going from China out to Indonesia, kind of focusing on that. So China's kind of in the top left, and Indonesia kind of ends in the bottom right. And it looks like it's saying that there's different defensive layers, with China being the third defensive layer, and like Malaysia and the Philippines being the first defensive layer.
Yep. So these are deterrence tactics. So you have to view this as not a. So again, China, right, already has a lot of plot of land. Huge. So if you look at like the game of diplomacy, you want to keep that land as much as humanly possible.
Absolutely.
So you're not going to be investing in these platforms, as the kill chain describes them by Christian Brogy. The United States currently, as we sit here and speak, is investing a lot of their Pentagon money and all that into what we call military platforms. This is just a fancy way of saying boats,
right?
Planes, new planes.
Yeah, things.
The fucking Thunderbirds are flying in Vegas this weekend. Yay! That costs millions of dollars. And that's what the United States thinks is a good way to fight a war.
Right.
China is under the impression of like, we already have a bunch of land and we want to keep the land we already have. So we're just going to set up defense.
Yeah.
What wins championships? Defense.
Right.
So they're viewing it as layers. Sea, under the sea, your coastline, everything in between your coastline, the air, and then everything above the air, including space.
Right.
You need to have all those in check so that you can properly deter anything that would come in, including a missile.
Right.
And this is their kill chain.
Okay.
Their kill chain is these different layers. Your submarines is your first layer, right? Because you have these submarines floating around the Philippines and doing their thing. If anything comes in, hopefully you can deter with your submarine. If that doesn't happen, you got your air, your surface-to-air missiles, right? And then lastly, you got all of it, surface, air, including everything in space, like your satellites and all that. All of these are working in tandem all at once, always.
Yeah.
And including with automation. AI. The United States is, again, not really doing this. So the fact that we are like floating through, if you look at this, like the water, the South China Sea, all of this is being currently monitored with submarines. And not only that, if you look at that At Ease episode that we did, what else are they creating in the South China Sea? Fucking islands, dude. Islands. And what did they put on these islands? Military bases.
Big old guns.
Yep. So that's even more deterrence that they are waiting for.
You think their submarines are patrolling in Japan right now? Because we patrol through Japan. That's one of our bases. I know our fast attacks go through there. That's crazy. That means, dang, dude. That's a lot closer than I thought.
Yes, dude.
I thought that they were ending, because we talked about Taiwan. Taiwan is like a linchpin, right? Where Japan kind of goes at an angle down towards China, and the Philippines kind of go at an angle up towards China, and Taiwan kind of looks like this little rock that sits in the center of it, like a goalie. And I didn't realize that they were probably, it makes sense. They would push beyond it because then they could retreat. You can give up ground as needed. Okay.
So currently what we're looking at is a flashpoint.
Yeah.
Like shit could pop off here pretty quick. I don't know if you...
And that's where it would.
Dude. Absolutely. So, well, I can't say absolutely. But yes, it's in theory it's where it could.
It's likely.
If you look on X or whatever social media that you're doing, bro, the United States military volunteers information that we are constantly in the Philippines doing like routine things right now. We are in Taiwan right now. We have...
Oh, yeah, we are in Taiwan
yes,
right
bro.
now.
Yes, absolutely. We have... Japan has rearmed since the first time since World War II. So yes.
And we have 2 bases in Japan, I think.
Yeah. Yeah,
At
one in
least 2.
Okinawa and one in somewhere else.
I should know it's where Hannah was. It's the Air Force Base. Yokota.
Okay, there you go.
Yokota's the Air Force
We might
base.
have more, dude.
We might have more.
Yeah,
we might have one
more
for each branch.
Yeah, I agree. So, point is, this is the future. Kill chains and A2 AD, anti-access area denial. Anti-access area denial. Ain't nothing coming in.
Yeah.
But I don't think that their doctrine, other than Taiwan, is really about aggression.
That's interesting.
It is interesting.
That's not the rhetoric that we've been fed.
No, but that's fear. They're just trying to spread fear.
The great weakness of a defensive strategy is that, and I think this comes up in The Art of War. Come on, read your own books, guys. That your defense is supposed to move. A stationary defense is the weakest defense. And that's interesting.
Yeah, your defense is supposed to move. And I think that's where the submarines come in and play, though.
Yeah.
And your air and ocean.
But that would explain why they keep doing things, because you can't just sit as a defense. Because otherwise you get a siege, and then you're sieged, and that's it. So
this is another aspect that I kind of want to briefly discuss because I think it does have to do with flashpoints. But this is called the Belt and Road Initiative for China. Have you heard of this, dude?
I've never heard of it. This is a map of what looks like Europe, Asia, and the top part of Africa. And what's crazy about this map is that Kazakhstan is just written real big on it, and I've never seen Kazakhstan written so big on a map ever, which I kind of like this.
All right, so this is China's Belt and Road Initiative, dude. And this is, as we speak, bro, this is literally happening. So the bright blue line is the rail system that they are currently creating.
Okay.
China is currently putting rail systems through all of these countries, trying to go all the way to Rotterdam in Germany, right? It'll go through Europe, Turkey.
It'll go down to Spain?
Dude. Yeah. And so they are gaining access to all of these different parts of the world where they're going to be having commerce go through all this stuff.
Sure.
Stuff that they're going to be selling.
Yeah.
Right?
I was going to say, because why would anyone agree to it? Because it's economics. You have to say yes to it.
So what do you think they can do for stuff like tax, different trade routes?
Yeah.
They're going to be doing the same thing with their sea routes. They're creating sea routes that have the exact same thing, bro. All of the stuff that they're exporting is going to go through that, and they're going to be in control of these routes.
Yeah, so it looks like the railroad one, there's two main paths. One from China, one goes up towards Moscow and then down to Germany, and the other one goes down through Iran and then Turkey and then up to like Italy.
It's a pretty huge hold on...
That's massive, dude.
Yes, dude. Yep. And in response to that, the United States has something called a China Plus One initiative. I don't know if you've heard of this.
No, I hate the name though.
So essentially it's being like, all right, well, since China is going to be, exporting all of their stuff to these countries and we're trying to do these tariffs things, we're now saying that we're going to be actually buying our stuff from Vietnam and Indonesia and, Pakistan and Iran instead. But Kevin, do you notice anything interesting about those places I just mentioned? Those are all stops on these.
They are.
So China's already going to have a foot in the door with all those countries that we're trying to do. So I'm saying this to say that you kind of touched on it earlier with like positional authority,
right,
dude. Like
if
China is having a dominant world trading route and they're in charge of the trading route of the South China Sea, at the dinner table, they're going to have a lot to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
As far as decisions that are going to be made.
Yes.
Right? So just interesting as far as flashpoints are concerned. I just want the listener to kind of keep that in mind, like that China is literally in the process of making this massive rail system to do exports. And even if imports or other things are going to different countries that have nothing to do with China, China still owns this rail system, bro. So it's just crazy.
I wonder what the deals are with the nations to like agree to it. Because you imagine like some of these nations that want to stay more neutral, like Germany would say no, but I guess they can't at a certain point because the geopolitics, like you need your economy to increase.
Especially if they're like, oh, you can use it to export your stuff too to wherever you want as far as the rail.
We'll pay for it. It will just build
it
for you real quick. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. It would be hard to say no.
Now, wargaming, dude.
We love some wargaming.
Wargaming, bro. I got deep into wargaming this episode for my research. I also got deep into reading. I read 3 fictional books about potential World War outbreaks because I just wanted ideas to see where people thought it might spark. I read one by Mark Greaney where like the Flashpoint started in Africa with the rare earth minerals. Like that's and there was a rail system involved in that one as well.
Yeah.
Super interesting. I read a book called 2034 that starts in the South China Sea. It was very interesting. And as I was reading these books and doing this, I was realizing that one thing that war games kind of definitely bring you out of is the human aspect of it, dude.
Always.
Like, you forget that people are gonna have to like die, and there's that's important for me. It was important for me to read these fictional books because it brought me into the human aspect. Like, oh, this is a character with a family and all these different things.
My favorite strategy, the tempo strategy, I can't ever use in a real scenario because it would mean that I'm trading lives, which would devastate me.
Well, so you'll come to realize here, right? So the CSIS did a wargaming. They did 30, I believe, 30 rounds of it in 2023, and wrote this long paper that I read. It was like a 30-page paper explaining everything that they learned about a perceived invasion of China and Taiwan.
Sure.
And so one of the first things that they found out, so Taiwan can defend itself. It absolutely can defend itself with everything that it has in play right now with the United States and Japan and the Philippines and Australia.
Yeah.
However, the one thing that we know for a fact that if this pops off every time, 30 times that they ran this, is that a lot of, specifically we'll say American citizens, service members will die.
Yeah.
But that's the first thing that happens.
I imagine carriers go down.
Yeah. Well, it's the first thing that happens.
Yeah.
The first thing that happens is that U.S. ships are going to go bye-bye. You have a lot of sailors that are going to die. A lot of people on the beachheads of Taiwan are going to die.
Yeah.
It's rough. But it's possible. It's just, in order for it to be possible, you have to sacrifice a lot of human lives.
Yep.
That's
you have to make the trade.
And so that's important to understand.
Know it
because
ahead of time.
I was sitting here, you'll see here with the next slide, but I start to war game with AI. I did war game with AI. And it was important for me to bring in the human aspect of it. Because otherwise it was just like a weird, like masturbatory, like, I'm just playing games. I'm not learning anything. So
on this book or whatever, this paper, I'm just interested because everything's so advanced now compared to what it used to be. It used to matter so much where the flashpoint took place. Does it still matter, or does it not really? Did they have the flashpoints be different places in the world, or were they
flashpoints is a battle buddy term? I mean it's not our term. It's just, this is what I'm calling it.
So like, the initiation. So did they do different types of initiations? Do you know how they started?
Great question. So you're talking about specifically for this war game?
Yeah, because they did it 30
every
rounds.
time China is attacking Taiwan.
Okay,
that's how it starts every single time. That's a good question because
I'm just wondering, like, does that even matter these days?
For sure, because you're like, dude, there's so many variables that we don't know if it's going to start this specific way.
Right?
Is what you're saying?
And then we all have so many protocols in place. Do the protocol, like, if it happens in Africa, same protocol. Who cares?
This is all on the predication that China is
Taiwan.
actively invading Taiwan and trying to take it over.
So
if we're in the gray zone tactics right now, we've already skipped to their attacking.
Got it.
And it's this important information for the Pentagon to be like, hey, so if you guys do want this, just know this is what's going to happen. And one of the big things that they found out was like, we can't store all these munitions on Taiwan.
Yes.
If you store all these munitions on Taiwan, they're going to bomb Taiwan, and it's going to be bad news bears. So what it means is that Taiwan runs out of munitions quickly, which means that the United States is going to have to be the ones providing all the munitions, right? But then you also run into the fact that the United States doesn't have... It's not just the United States. Something that needs to happen is that we would need to invest in very, 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 very long-range missiles.
Yeah.
Very long-range missiles that we don't have yet.
Intercontinental.
We have them. They're just not as accurate.
Yeah.
The more they go away, the less likely it is they're going to hit their target.
And I imagine we don't have many of them to do what this.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
That is the biggest, when everyone's like, all right, so what do we need to do? The people there, like, if you read the report basically says you need to invest in long-range missiles, and you need to figure out how we're going to get more munitions.
Yeah.
Because you run out of them quickly, people are going to die. We already know that right off the bat. So it's like, cool, these are expendable. These are our pawns. I hate to use that word.
No, but that's what it is.
It is. It truly is. So,
because they have to be there, because if the carrier's not there, then it's not a threat. Because if they don't deal with the carrier wins the whole engagement.
Yeah. And so it's always interesting because diplomatically, when people start to die, now leaders can use, people are dying. So I want to just give up and stop.
Increase your production, subvert convert all production industry to the war efforts. Rosie the Riveter.
Yeah,
Right?
for real. So it's just interesting. I just want the listener to know, like, we've already thought about this. There's people that have built entire games to go over this.
Absolutely.
And
Is the donut one of the Afghanistan invasion? Remember, I read through those at ease, and I think we were both pretty pissed because the wargaming before we invaded was essentially, we should not focus on killing them. We should focus on just being kind and really doing the hearts and minds, not just handing out pamphlets, and that would win it. And then we didn't do it. But like the war game was there, the evidence was all there.
we're at an interesting spot in humanity right now, dude, because we obviously have huge weapons.
Yep.
But if you look in recent history, you're like, well, man, I guess we don't really know what would happen if we did it. We do.
Pretty good idea.
Well, we did the Masters of the Air, right?
Yep.
And so we even saw what happened without nuclear weapons, bro. It's still bad.
It's horrible.
So warfare is changing, where people are starting to get more protective of what they already have, and it looks like war is going to be more so about sanctions and things of this nature, right?
Which I'm more okay with.
I have some other theories though, and this is where things are going to get fun. So, my buddy Eric Brucha has a grandfather that had a house on Lombard Street in San Francisco.
Wow.
And we went to go visit him once, and he's this fucking amazing old Italian man, like literally grabs you by the cheek and is like,
good.
Yeah, dude, it's great. And we went and visited him one time. He's like, I found a new way of enjoying life today. And this was back in I don't know, 2005. And he's like, iTunes has free lectures from universities that you can just sit here and listen to professors lecture. And it was just like, dude, this is one of my favorite human beings. So while I was in Carlsbad visiting Camp Pendleton again for the first time in years, I also found a new way to enjoy life. And that new way was I started wargaming with AI.
Yeah.
I even went out and bought a D20 die. We did some stuff like that where it would have me roll. And I asked it I had it pick specifically different scenarios, and I had it give me multiple choice options. I would give it options, sometimes adding different things that I wanted to do, and it would walk me through this. This shit was highly addicting.
Yeah, I bet.
I learned so much, bro.
Yeah.
Had an absolute blast reading these fictional stories in Carlsbad at the pool, while also wargaming with AI to learn about all these different things that could possibly happen. I literally want us to do a Patreon episode where we do some wargaming with AI.
Yeah, that sounds
is
great.
Hella fun, bro. Hella fun. So, what did I do, bro? I played as China trying to invade Taiwan with everything that I had learned about gray zone tactics and everything. And I did the same thing. I played as Russia trying to invade the Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned some very interesting things.
Yeah, what did you find?
So, now the first couple of times I tried to be, I thought I was smart, and AI was like, you're not, actually.
Right.
So the first thing that I did was I was like, all right, I'm going to send in some special unit forces into Taiwan, and they're going to have these modulars these modular systems that basically send out like EMPs, like miniature EMPs. And long story short, I was like, this is going to take too long, bro.
Right.
You're not, this is like a month long operation that you want to do, and we need to do something quicker. So what I ended up doing, I started thinking more so about gray zone tactics. And so what I did do was I essentially did a top secret mission where I sent some folks into a Taiwan fisherman boat, and I had the fisherman boat try to be aggressors to a Chinese Coast Guard ship. So boom, I put it, cameras rolling, making sure cameras are rolling. Yep. I made sure to do this so that a bunch of ships could see. People were taking cell phone videos. It's already on TikTok with it before the morning. So now I got Taiwan fishermen trying to shoot at the Coast Guard.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now I have this disinformation campaign that I'm doing. I did a lot of counterintelligence shit
Yep.
on both ends.
That's how it's going to be.
Well, dude, because you have with these cell phones, people are fucked, bro.
Yeah.
Like you when you go on and you scroll through your echo chamber of news that only fits your algorithm, that's not news, just so you guys all know. And that includes me. That includes me, which is why you and I, for the most part, really do kind of try to stay away from fucking news.
Yep, I'm either breaking my algorithms or because I'm really into hobby horse now. I'm not into hobby horsing. I just don't want Instagram to think they got me.
Talk about a psyop, bro.
Yeah.
Talk about counterintelligence. So yeah, I would do disinformation tactics with gray zone tactics. Essentially, I played the long game.
Yeah.
I had all these ships surround Taiwan because Taiwan was aggressing me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, excuse me, you're aggressing me. Like,
Don't shoot at my...
I don't know if you knew this, but the rest of the world wants their cell phones.
Yeah.
So I did a blockade around Taiwan. I was like, cool. So now we're going to stop everything going in and out without us making sure we check you because terrorism is abound. You guys are fighting the Chinese Coast Guard.
So you're literally Darth Sidious in episode 1.
Oh, this is all Star Wars, bro.
Yeah.
This has all been done before, for sure. So I'm stopping them from going in and out. And finally, over time, I put disinformation, making it look like they are upset with our blockade and not abiding by our rules, and essentially make it look like they're the aggressors. And over time, the entire world is like, China should just probably just take this over and deal with it.
We don't want people to die.
There you go. And so that was pretty simple. Mind you, that was not the first round of me.
Sure.
Yeah. It took lots of me figuring out that I actually had to go the information route with it rather than again, this is kind of why I would call it a Cold War 2.0. I don't know if it's going to turn into more proxy wars.
Right.
Like we saw it with Afghanistan.
It would be
which
difficult,
is a proxy war.
Because if we're looking at the layers of defense that you had up, that map, what would that mean? Like a proxy war in the Philippines? That'd be confusing as fuck.
You know what I'm saying?
It'd be really hard.
Yeah.
We know it's really hard because we cleared through the Philippines once before, and that was very hard. We know that's a tough thing to do. So, I don't know where else the proxy war would be. Because it would have to be in that third line of defense, right? Like you couldn't jump into the second line of defense, so it'd have to be like Malaysia or I don't know how you do any of that kind of stuff. I guess not Malaysia.
Well, we can mess around with it, dude. I've been asking for different flashpoints. I played one flashpoint scenario in Africa as Russia trying to gain territory in Africa, and dude, it always gets just really sticky when you try to send troops in. So like if you look at like Russia with the beginning of this Ukraine thing, the little green men, they sent in troops with no insignia.
Yeah.
And it was like everyone was like, so there's still troops, dude. like these are still military members. Like just take off the patches, guys. They won't know. Yeah. And it was just really silly, and it puts a bad taste in everyone's mouth, bro. I don't know.
That was a bad move.
Yeah. And I think continually it will be a bad move until the information on a grand scale unless people can get behind it. When you have these characters like Osama bin Laden and reasons to go to Afghanistan, people are like, yeah, dude, go get them, right? You have these reasons, people can get behind it. But when people are just like, we just want Taiwan.
Yeah.
What? Like people aren't going to be on board with that. So I really do think, based off of everything that I've read, based off of the wargaming with AI, I think it's going to have to go the what is reality disinformation route. Yeah.
Everything points to that.
Yeah.
That being said, the issue with wargaming, there's two issues with wargaming, I think. Because I love it all the time. But the Black Swan events. There are going to be there's always going to be unexpected things. And so wargaming can only approximate because, one, we don't know the deep, dark secrets that the other nation, the Blitzkrieg was a deep, dark secret. Like they wargamed that for years.
Yeah.
And people think about the Blitzkrieg, they just ran really fast. No, they specifically, while they were running really fast, made it so that civilians had to keep running and disrupting their supply lines. Like it's actually very clever what they did. Is horrible. Like at a human level, it's awful. But nobody expected that. And so the other side didn't understand that during their wargaming because they nobody thought of that maneuver. So I think the technology unknown that each nation harbors, that are going to be players is going to it's going to be a variable that they'll have to overcome.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I think is that, like Guns, Germs, and Steel, like there's going to be some element that we don't understand about, where we are with technology developments and, some weird thing, or about food production with climate change over the next 10 years that messes with it. So there's just there's unknowns, but we can approximate, I think, way better than we used to, and we're only getting better at it.
I think that's a perfect segue, dude. Is that like when people think of Cold War, they think of espionage,
Right.
They think of spies,
Yes.
right? And there's something kind of to where I think the future is headed with that. If we look at the war gaming and the literal just wars with Iraq and Afghanistan, we lost.
Absolutely.
But we had much better technology.
Yep.
So how does that make sense? Well, I think it'll go back to things like couriers, dude.
Yep.
Like with the way AI is and the way technology and social media is being used, I think the only way real secrets like you're talking about are with couriers. And what do I mean by couriers? I obviously mean just like people holding notes or literal just verbal
things non-plugged in.
Yeah,
we already do
unfortunately.
it, right? So many of our think tanks, our good think tanks,
Yeah.
they are closed, meaning that they do not have the internet. There is no internet even possible.
Because that's a slant.
Because you have to keep it closed because that's your actual secrets. Like you have to, there's just no other way around it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's fun because it's Dune. You get some Arrakis going on here.
Yeah.
But we saw that with when we did the addies on drones, right? The drone warfare is so interesting because it's both the highest tech and the lowest tech in combination, because you can't just have one anymore. If you just go low tech, the other guy's going to go high tech and just crush you. And if you just go high tech, then they're just going to go high tech and disrupt your high tech.
Yes.
So you have to mix everything. We're going to be throwing stones at each other while we're shooting nukes at the same time. It's going to be wild.
Right. And so it's just it's a messy thing to play, and I think that's why people find the Cold War daunting to study. Dan Carlin has only 2 episodes on the Cold War. The first one's called Meandering Through the Cold War.
Mm-hmm.
The second one's called Gas Up the Cold War, when Ukraine got invaded this most recent time. And he says the Cold War is like the most consequential thing in modern history.
It is.
Easily. But it's hard to like teach and talk about because you have these different layers. And I personally think that the reason it's hard is because you're dealing with escalation and perception.
Absolutely.
Escalation and perception is the name of the game, dude. And going forward with these, I think I want to call this episode Flashpoints.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want you now, when you read the news based on things that are happening in the world, wherever they may be, I want you to think based off of this episode, like, is this my perception or is this actual escalation?
Right.
Are they playing on what they know my ideology is? Or is this actually like, holy shit, China's like invading Taiwan?
Right.
And it all goes back to those superhero Air Force random officers who saw incoming missile and was like, nah.
Yep.
Nope. Nobody will ever know about this, but I saved the world.
Yeah.
He's the fucking K2SO in Rogue One, just falling, like saving the entire galaxy, and it's just like a moment in all of the movies.
Yep.
And that's my lesson for the day: escalation and perception, and flashpoints.
You did great, man. This is good.
Thanks. I hope that it was learned. It's a bit all over the place, but I tried to make it somewhat of a cohesive story. I appreciate you guys for listening. Kevin and I read a lot. We read a lot. There's a lot of words that I've been listening to and reading. But yeah, that was fun as fuck to learn about. I really enjoyed that, and I really want to start wargaming with AI on Patreon with you.
Let's do it.
I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah. So I think the way that we're going to be doing this, and I'll cut this if this doesn't work. But I've been going way more on the Discord lately, just like in the voice channels. So we'll put the Discord link into our Instagram. We have like 30 to 50 people that definitely listen to Battle Buddies like every episode.
Yeah.
And then our numbers jump up and down. But, according to our metrics, we have like 50 of us that like this community. And I want us to interact more. So come hang out with us on the Discord. Like when we do these things like the Patreon thing, or like wargaming against the AI, like come join us. Come hang out with us when we do it.
Yeah,
it's
dude.
fun.
I want us to do like a comedy, like wargaming one, like just ridiculous scenarios.
Yes, good.
Like Chuck E. Cheese took over the United
Yes.
States and wants to like fight Nintendo Corporation, like
Yeah, that'd be
some
fun.
crazy shit.
Yes.
Like we start to superimpose the animatronics with AI, and they, you know what I mean?
Yep.
We got a bunch of mouse Chuck E. Cheese's animatronics killing Super Mario. I don't know. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, in my life, this is one of my most favorite things to do. Speaking to this microphone.
It's one of the great honors in my life to share the stage with you.
Truly.
It is.
Truly, dude. So, listeners, thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Please interact with us like Kevin said, or don't. That's fine too.
That's fine.
But we love you guys. And until next time,
Hoka hey.